Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel, Taylor Talks Tales. Today I have an awesome video for you. I'm very excited to be doing this one, and that's going to be my top books of 2019. So I ended up reading 101 books this year, which was awesome. My Goodreads goal every year is 100. For the most part I hit it. There are some years that I'm close but not quite, and then this year I did hit it. And the one thing with my Goodreads challenge is I always want to make sure that these are new books to me. So rereads don't count towards my personal goal. So I have done some rereads, but these are all new books to me. Some of them came out in 2019, some of them have been around for years, but I read them, and I do think that 2019 was a fairly strong reading year for me, especially the second half. In fact, when I go through these books, the majority of them I read from like July onward, and even then my favorites, most of them came about like end of August, September, October, November, and December. So really the last third of the year was where my favorite books, for whatever reason, I just was on a really good reading streak, as opposed to the first part and even the middle part of the year where it seemed like I was picking up not as great books. So let's get into it, and these are roughly in order of when I read them throughout the year. It's almost kind of like a timeline of my reading year with my favorites, but it's not in an exact order. So the first one, this was my, not my first book of the year, but it was like the third book of the year, I would say, and I really enjoyed it, and that's Good Morning Midnight by Lily Brooks Dalton. So this one is a apocalyptic / disaster novel about this gentleman who's an older man, and he lives up in basically an Arctic research center, and he just loses contact with the outside world. Something happens and he's all alone and isolated up there, and then discovers a little girl there, and they kind of form a bond. He didn't have technically produced a child, but he didn't ever take care of this child, so he had never had a chance to be a father, so there's kind of a father-daughter bonding time. And then there is an astronaut and her crew, and essentially this story just kind of is about them eventually making contact and what it means to be human, and loneliness. Loneliness is definitely, you feel kind of lonely when you're reading this book, and the description of the Arctic was so really well done. When I was reading it, it was during this really wintry, snowy time here in the Seattle area. We tend not to get a whole lot of snow, but we did, and so it just added to that atmosphere. And I would say it's a very fast novel. It's very descriptive and beautiful, and it's not super plot heavy, and you actually never find out what caused essentially whatever happened, whatever disaster, that nobody's responding to the astronauts anymore or to this astronomer. You don't know. So if that's the type of book that bothers you, this might not be it, but I do recommend it. It's very beautiful. Next one, I'm lumping them together because they are the first and second book of this series that I know a lot of people know about, so I'm not going to go into too many details about that, but it's Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive. We've got The Way of Kings, and we have Words of Radiance. These guys are beasts. They are bricks. They took me a while to get through, but I'm glad that I did because the world building is fantastic. The magic system is awesome. The characters are really well done. I need to get to, I forgot what maybe Oathbringer? I forgot what the third one is. I need to get to that, but I just set it down because I was in the mood for a switch from high fantasy to something else, just because I had spent a while with these two guys. But very good, well done. Got me more into high fantasy because I did not know high fantasy could be this awesome, so recommend these a lot. Next one is Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I mentioned this briefly in my book haul. I loved this book. Essentially, it's about multiple people who are traveling on a spaceship to go to this planet to see this mysterious being called the Shrike, and you get their tales along the way, and all of the stories are different, and they kind of come together in a super awesome way. There's one story in particular that just made me both so sad, and there's another one that made me horrified, so it's kind of a cross-genre novel. It was brilliant. I loved it. I don't know if I'm going to read the other books in the series because I kind of feel like it sort of could work as a standalone, and my ex-boyfriend had said that he didn't really care for the other books in the series that followed this, so they're on my list, but not high on my list. But I really enjoyed Hyperion. Next up, we have Wanderers by Chuck Wendig. Oh, I adored this book, and I did a review on it not too long ago. This book got me through a really tough time. I had this not so great job. It started off really wonderful, and then the summer busy season hit, and then it just descended into chaos. I was working like 65 hours a week, was super stressed. This book helped me get through that chaos. It's just almost everything I want in a novel. It's has great characters. It's just this big epic story where you're following, these people just trying to survive and trying to figure out what's going on and trying to save humanity and everything and what it means to be human. And there's love and loss and explorations about technology and disease and the apocalypse and stuff. And it was just so good. Go check out. I'll actually put my review in the down bar, but please go check it out. I would definitely put it up there with my favorite post-apocalyptic fiction, which is my favorite subgenre. It deserves to be up there with The Stand and Swan Song, in my opinion. It's different enough that it's not copying them, but it pays homage to those. So, excellent. This was my favorite summer read. It really got me through some tough times. Alright, the next books, I'm also going to mention both at the same time because it's by the same author. But I like one slightly more than the other, but these are two books by Riley Sager. So we have The Last Time I Lied, and we have Lock Every Door. So funny enough, I did not enjoy Final Girls that much. I think I gave it like a 3. It was okay, but not great. But I did pick up Last Time I Lied. I actually was reading this book when I went on a girls' trip to Disneyland. This was the book that I brought on the plane, and I just flew through it. I adored it. I enjoyed the plot twist a lot and the atmosphere and aesthetic of this book because it's set at a summer camp. I was on it 100%. And then Lock Every Door I ended up picking up after I read this because I just enjoyed Last Time I Lied so much. And I also really enjoyed this one as well. It has a slightly different feel to it. And I do think if I had to pick between the two, I would pick this one. But I liked both of these enough to want to put them both on my top reads of the year. I have a review on this one, so I'll link it in the down bar, and I'm going to be doing a review on this one sometime in January, because I do know that they're going to be doing some sort of like mini-series or TV show based off of this, so I hope it's good. I'm always hesitant to get super excited about book to movie or book to TV show adaptations because there's so much room for messing it up, but we'll see. But both these are excellent thrillers. Mysteries and all that stuff going on in here, so I enjoyed both of these a lot. Next one is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which just love that snake, and I have a signed copy, which is really cool. I read this on the plane, started on the plane when I was leaving from my Pittsburgh trip, and I enjoyed this a lot. I know there's some mixed opinions about it. I personally really enjoyed it a lot. I liked the magic. I didn't mind the non-linear timeline. I didn't mind the graphic stuff in it. It worked for me. Is it my #1 book of the year? No, but it's still on the list. I liked it a lot. I'm going to continue with the series for sure. And yeah, I have a review on this book as well that I'll link below too, just so I don't make this video way too long, but I did enjoy Ninth House a lot. Next one is one that I need to make a review because I keep bringing it up, but that is Kin by Keelan Patrick Burke. I hope I'm pronouncing his first name right. I apologize if I'm not. I enjoyed this one a lot. I ended up reading this after Ninth House, right as I was getting into my horror binge of October and November and everything because it's spooky season, and I picked this up because I'd heard really good things about this. There were a couple of my favorite Goodreads people and a couple people on Bookstagram who had recommended this, and yeah, it is brutal. It is just, it sucks you in, and it is a wild ride from start to finish. I definitely, of all the books in this stack and all the horror books I've read so far, this is the one where I do recommend you be, not a squeamish person and just be open to seeing what this book throws at you, because it is up there in pretty extreme writing. I loved it, but I don't want to lead innocent people into reading this book if they aren't ready for it. But it's great. Has to do a lot with, a messed up family and survivors and, revenge and all of that. So definitely check it out. I will be doing a review on this just because I keep mentioning it because it's really good. So I will be doing a full-on review because it deserves a full-on review. Alright, next is the Twisted Ones. I also have already done a review on this. This one was pretty funny, in addition to being spooky and having really interesting mythology and folklore behind it. I liked it a lot, and I'm glad that I just picked it up without having checked it out at the library first. Has a great main character, very memorable. I would like to go get coffee with her, hang out with her sometime, because she's just very cool. I definitely want to check out more by this author, so Twisted Ones, and I will link my review below too. Next one, and by the way, this is not a library copy, it's an ex-library copy, so don't get mad at me for stealing a book. But this is Roger Zelazny's Night in the Lonesome October, which I really enjoy. I want to get a better edition of this book. In fact, this actually technically isn't my book. This is somebody's book that I need to return it to them. But I do enjoy this cover a lot, and this book, the atmosphere is so good, and you basically follow a dog and his master, and there's magic and murder, and it's dark but also light too, if that makes sense. And it's a very cozy autumnal read. I thought it was perfect when I read it in October. In fact, it counts down. The chapters are basically October 1st, and it ends on October 31st, which I really liked. So this is a fantastic October read, and I wouldn't necessarily call it pure horror or anything like that. It has horror elements, but it also has mystery, and it has fantasy, and it's just a lot coming together to make this really awesome book that has lots of animal characters, and it's smart and just very enjoyable. So I loved this a lot, and I'm going to be rereading it around October going forward. Next one is, if I had to maybe pick my top book of the year, this may be it. I haven't really figured out if I had to do a number one. I could do my number 5, but I would definitely say The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex Harrow. This was so amazing and gorgeous and fantastical and magical and creative, and I fell in love with it. I just decided to just buy it because I didn't want to wait at the library, and it sounded really good, but I didn't go into it with extremely high expectations or anything. I just kind of went into I'll probably enjoy it. It's gonna be this cool portal fantasy, and I love portal fantasy. This one just blew me away. The writing was amazing, the characters were amazing. It's so good, and I love it, and I hope that you guys might be inspired to check this out. It's definitely, has nothing to do with horror or thrillers, but it's really awesome fantasy, and I am very excited to check out other stuff by this author going forward, because she just did a very solid book. Alright, there are only a couple left of my top books of the year. This one, so my year with contemporary YA was not that great. It seemed like every contemporary YA I picked up, there was something I had issues with. I didn't pick up a lot of the popular ones. I was trying to read some of the non-popular ones, and I think maybe that was why, because they were just some kind of crappy YA contemporaries. But I think my favorite one is definitely The Last True Poets of the Sea. It came out in October, and I read it in November, and this book is definitely one I would recommend reading in the summer, but it was really gorgeous. It has this really lovely sapphic love story to it with these two girls, but there's also a bisexual love triangle going on, and it explores family and relationships and sibling dynamics, and at the heart it's basically these two girls trying to find this lost, not necessarily treasure, but they're looking for a sunken ship, and it has to do also with family. I'm definitely going to be doing a review of this at some point in January, because I don't think I'm explaining it properly in this video, but it was just very well done and very entertaining, and I enjoyed the seaside atmosphere, and the main character works at an aquarium, which I thought was really cool too, because I love anything to do with like marine stuff or ocean stuff, and I do also enjoy books that are set by the seaside, so I would definitely say this is my favorite YA contemporary of the year. Next up, we have The Reddening by Adam Neville. This one, I won't go into too many details because I already did a review. I will link the review in the bottom, but I did like this a lot. It just had me hooked from start to finish. It's very cinematic, and I definitely, it got me into wanting to read more of Adam Neville's work because I read The Ritual years ago, and this sparked my interest in Adam Neville, and I've read several of his works since reading this one, but it's awesome. If you are interested in like cult or archaeology or, just myth and monsters and all that stuff, this is definitely a book to check out. Alright, the last two. So, I also have another Adam Neville book, and that is Last Days. I recently finished this one up. This was so good too. I'm going to be doing a review on it on this channel in the next couple of days, but this was fantastic. I happen to really enjoy found footage films when they're good, because found footage, they're either really good or they're really terrible. And this book just really is the one book where I really feel like, besides Into the Drowning Deep and Fantastic Land, I felt like those two did a really good job of it as well. But with like that sort of found footage, faux documentary type feel, this was an excellent one. Very creepy, just sucks you in the whole time. And I think what I really liked too is that you get the internal monologue and like thought process of Kyle, the main guy, so you see why he becomes so obsessed with keeping the cameras rolling and why he's doing what he's doing, as opposed to sometimes in found footage films where you're like, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just drop the camera? Why don't you do this? It's explained in this book very well, and the cult that they're following was just really fleshed out and very creepy, and it takes a turn that I thought made it very strong, and I really enjoyed it a lot. It was not just your standard run-of-the-mill like cult story. It added a lot to it, so full review will be coming, but I did like this a lot. And then the last one. This one was a book I just wrapped up, and this will be my last favorite book of the year, and that was Brother by Anya Alborn. Just did a review on it. I'll also link it in the down bar below. This was awesome. I went into it with, just thinking I was going to like it, but not knowing how much I was going to like it. It really just surprised me in a great way. It's very captivating. I loved the characters. It's gruesome without being over the top. It's heart-wrenching at times, and you're just following this whole situation, and it just gets darker and more messed up, and it ends up being quite shocking. So I enjoyed this a lot. The review will also be in the down bar below. And those are my top books of the year. I have two honorable mentions that I'll briefly mention. One is, actually, I've got it on my shelf right here. One is The Talisman by Stephen King. This is my first time reading The Talisman. I did enjoy it quite a bit, and I think gave it like a 4.5 star, something like that, because it was enjoyable, and it does. I am interested in rereading The Dark Tower, because I've only read the first 3 books of The Dark Tower, and this kind of sparked my interest to be like, I should revisit The Dark Tower and just reread the 3 books, so that way I can get back into the series. So it's definitely an honorable mention. Not in the top books, but definitely an honorable mention. And this also was a joint read with somebody, and that also made the experience very fun, because I do love doing joint reads with people. And then the other honorable mention is The Language of Birds, I think it's called. I will actually link it in the bottom, but basically, or no, sorry, The Meaning of Birds, and that was also a really good book, and I wish I had a copy of it. It was a YA contemporary novel, basically the only other YA contemporary novel I really enjoyed this year, and it also has a sapphic love story to it, sort of a love and loss story as well, because the main character's girlfriend just suddenly dies, and it's her processing her grief and all that, and then she ends up getting into like metalworking, which I thought was really cool because I myself have been interested in pursuing some metalworking and blacksmithing and that kind of stuff. So those are the 2 honorable mentions, and I had some other books I liked, but these are just really my top of the year. Enjoyed them all. Everything was awesome, and I recommend all the books on this list. So if you've read them, let me know. If you plan on checking them out, also let me know down bar what you think about them. And yeah, also let me know what were your top books of the year. Were any of these on your top list? I thank you so much for sticking with me through this sort of long video about all my favorites, but I did have quite a few this year, so which is awesome. You know, it was a pretty solid reading year, especially the second half. So thank you so much. Happy reading and happy New Year's Eve. You guys have an awesome night. Stay safe. New Year's Eve going into New Year's Day is kind of a dangerous time to be on the road, so please be safe. Happy reading, and I will see you in the next video and then next year. All right. Happy reading, guys. Have a good day.